Good evening, everyone. This is James Rodney Lamb. How's everyone doing out there tonight? Everything is all good. First and foremost, I would like to thank all of my YouTube viewers out there for watching and supporting my videos. Y'all know who you are, as well as commenting, liking, and sharing. The topic I would like to talk about for tonight is called The History of Black Films Then and Now, Part 1. Well, black films had started since the 1930s, then it went on to the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even the 2000s and beyond. Well, there's one controversial word that has often been mentioned since the early 70s, and that word is called Blaxplotation. Blaxploitation means a genre of films that had largely featured black actors and was aimed toward a black audience. Some of those films were very profitable too. Now, blaxploitation was made out of two different words, black and exploitation. Put those two words together, and what do you get? Blaxploitation. Well, it's basically a negative word, and which I totally find offensive, and I'll tell you why. It was mentioned by a guy by the name of Julius Griffith in August 1972, who then at the time was the president of the NAACP. He claimed that the word exploitation was proliferating offenses to the black community that perpetuated stereotypes that had been often involved in crime. In other words, they were talking about pimps, prostitutes, drug pushers, and drug dealers, and the mob, which basically all of the good guys were trying to eliminate. Now, you look at a movie like Superfly, which was one of the best movies ever made. It was about a drug dealing pimp who was basically trying to get out of the drug life, but he wanted to make one last score before he retired. And it also spawned a great musical soundtrack. It was by the late, great Curtis Mayfield. And the guy who had played Superfly was Ron O'Neal, who was definitely one of the greatest actors of his generation. And he also had another movie called The Mac, which was also about a pimp who was trying to make it big in the pimp world, which was another great movie, and also had another great soundtrack by the late, great Willie Hutch, who was best known for writing and producing like other acts like Jackson 5 and Smokey Robinson. And then, of course, there was Across 110th Street, which was about three guys who pretended to be cops, and so they had supposedly stole $300,000 from the mafia, which had another great soundtrack by the late, great Bobby Womack. So those three films were basically about pimping and the mob. Now, if you look at movies like Shaft, Slaughter, and Three the Hard Way, which was totally different, they were basically about good guys who were trying to get rid of the bad guys. And basically, and if you look at the difference today, when I'm talking about like today's actors, as far as Denzel Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, Will Smith, and Morgan Freeman, can you imagine how much they make per picture? 10, 20, 30 million per picture, which is totally insane. Now you look at Jim Brown, one of the greatest football players ever to dominate the NFL field, or who we had lost earlier this year. And Fred Williamson, who was another football player. He would also play for the Kansas City Chiefs, as well as Jim Brown had played for the Cleveland Browns. They were both football players. And Richard Roundtree and Ron O'Neal, Pam Grier, and Gloria Hendry. They had never really made that kind of money. And you know why? Because it was a different time. I'm not really taking anything away from today's actors. It's just that as far as the terminology blaxploitation, I mean, who was being exploited? I mean, those black actors, they had a job, they went to work, and they enjoyed making these films, as well as we, the audience, had to go enjoy seeing those films. And audiences cheered, and audiences loved it. And to all the critics out there, I want to say this. If you're real offended about those, if you're really offended by those movies, and if you don't like what you see, don't watch them. Don't go see them. Tell them what movie you really want to be seen. The bottom line was, as I said, those actors, they had a job, they went to work, and they enjoyed doing those films. And they were making money. Personally, those black films were definitely classics. And they still resonate today. So, and I believe it's very important that today's actors, they should acknowledge yesterday's actors who had definitely paved the way for them. So there you have it. Stay tuned for part 1 of the history of black films then and now. Thank you all for watching. Peace.